All right, so good morning, everyone. I'm Prema George. I am the e-Stewards Certification Director and will be the moderator today. Thank you for taking the time to join the webinar today on Advanced Plus program. So through this webinar, we're opening our program to all certified e-cyclists, and we're very excited about it. So we have 4 great panelists today. So we'll start with Bill Morris. He is our chair for the Social Impact Committee, and he's the co-founder of Blue Star Recyclers. So Bill runs this social enterprise with a mission of recycling and electronics to employ people with disabilities. It was Blue Star's workforce inclusion and development model that we have used for the Advanced Plus program. Following Bill, we have Kevin Webb, who's a senior director at Mitsubishi Electric America Foundation, MEAF. This organization supports employment and inclusion of young people with disabilities. So MEF has been providing funding to support the Advanced Plus program since 2020. We're very happy to have Kevin on the panel today. So after Kevin, we have Greg Cox, our panelist. He's the corporate disability consultant at James Emmett and Company. He is leading workforce inclusion and consulting for that, and has trained some of the largest employers in the US who have provided comprehensive training and sourcing support to employers in the Advanced Plus training program. So finally, we have Bob Adams, Vice President of Finance and Operations at Sipi Asset Recovery. Sipi is a leading ITAD services provider in the Americas, and also the first employer to complete training in the Advanced Plus training program in 2020. And they've also developed an internal program to promote and grow inclusion of people with disabilities. So welcome to one and all. Before we start, just a reminder, all participants will be muted through the webinar, and towards the end, we have a Q&A. If you have any questions or comments, you can use the raise hand button on the right side, and we will unmute you so you can ask your question or make your comment. You can also leave your questions or comments in the chat window, which is also on the right. So you can leave them there and we will get to them one after the other. All right, so over to you, Bill. Have a good webinar.
Okay. I just had to wait for David to unmute me there. So, okay. Well, good morning, everyone, or at least good morning. I'm in Colorado, so it's we have a little bit of a snowstorm going on here, and it's a great day to be in the house. So, before I get started, I just want to make a quick thank you to e-Stewards and to Jim for hosting this webinar today, and especially to David Barford with e-Stewards, who has done all the technical behind the scenes stuff to make all this possible and get us together. So David, thank you. Prem, if you'll go to the next slide. So I was told that when you're going to solve a problem, it helps to know what the problem is. And we have a couple of challenges here that are significant, that are worth working on. And the first one is, and I think everyone on this call that's in this industry will understand this, there's a bit of a labor crisis going on. It's been going on for a few years now. For some of us, it's an annoyance. For some of us, it's a full-blown crisis. But it centers around the difficulty with attracting and retaining entry-level labor specifically, most of the recyclers that I talk to continue to have open positions, continue to experience no call, no shows for interviews and for people they've hired, and high rates of absenteeism and turnover. So it's just, we're certainly not the only industry to go through this, but it's a real problem. And this program is designed to apply itself to that. The second problem has been going on quite a bit longer, of course, and that's that people with diagnosed disabilities in this country, no matter how much effort and time and money we've spent, are still largely left out of the labor market. The government says that 75% of people with disabilities can work and want to work, yet there's just a lack of opportunity when it comes for them to get started. And so that's really the main thing that we want to focus on, is to really look at these two elements and introduce one to the other. There's an irony that is not hard to pick up when you drive down the street. There are flags flying in front of businesses, big signs that say we're hiring. And yet in that same, and having difficulty with finding people, and in that same neighborhood, there are people sitting home that would make great employees that just are, again, they're out of sight, out of mind. So really what we want to do is to help employers find this labor solution. And I want to set a tone for this entire webinar, and that we are not discussing this because of philanthropy or sympathy or pity for people with disabilities. Quite the opposite. We're actually discussing this as a labor solution for recyclers that are looking for good people to show up and get their work done. And we think we have an answer for that. Prima, next slide. So if you look at Blue Star, we're sort of a series of accidental discoveries so I didn't come up with this as an intellectual thought before it started. It was really just running into four young men 14 years ago this month, actually, at a disability services program in Colorado Springs that I was running. And these four men pictured here, Christopher, Nathan, Mark, and Ryan, were in the back of this building. Someone a few years earlier had brought them some old electronic items that had worn out, that no one wanted anymore, and given them some hand tools, and they were taking them apart. One day I went back and I had probably a couple hours to spend watching them, and sort of blown away by how good they were at it. Christopher on the left could tear down a desktop computer in about 2 minutes with a screwdriver and a pair of snips. And I asked him how he got so good at it, and he said, I don't know, I just taught myself. And the other three guys were not quite as fast as him. But the thing I noticed was they were all hyper-focused and comfortable and doing something that matched their innate assets. And none of them were being paid to do this. They were not being supervised particularly well in this day program center, and none of them had been trained. What I did know is that all four had been diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and the little bit of information I had did bear out that a common thread in people with autism is an attraction and an affinity for tasks that are systematic, repetitive, procedural, tactile, things that we do over and over again. One of their strengths is the ability to focus on the now. So if you come into Blue Star and see our gang, they're not looking at the pile in front of them or the pile behind them. They're focused on the computer that's right in front of them or the work that's right in front of them. And that's what allows them to be hyper productive employees. So that's how we got started, really, was to get these four young men employed. I approached a recycler in Denver who loaned us some warehouse space in late 2008. And we were off and running, and they paid us 5 cents a pound to take apart computers for them. And we basically did that for a year. And the thing that's most meaningful is that these four young men changed. everything about them, mentally, physically, emotionally, they changed. None of them had ever had a job or even had an interview. And they came and got their PPE, their tools, sat down, went to work, and every one of them blossomed as a human being. I've never seen anything like it. And we added 2 more to that team, and by the fall of 2009, Prima, next slide. We were fortunate to make another discovery that the Fenant family in Colorado Springs had a building, and it had a truck and some old electronics that had been left by a tenant that was leasing space. Some of you that have been around the industry a long time would remember them, Blue Star Electronics out of Hayward, California. They left town and all that material was sitting in that building, and they donated it to us. And I was so cheap, I just recycled their name. We just put the word recyclers where the word electronics had been, and we were off and running. We have no relationship to Blue Star Electronics, we just have happened to recycle their name. So over the next 9 years, if we just roll forward there, it's basically Blue Star added 3 facilities, 2 more in Denver and Boulder, and we opened in Chicago in 2019, and then up in Aspen and Basalt in 2020. But the most important discovery we made, and Prima, if you'll advance to the next slide. The most important discovery of all was we knew we had a group of employees that had affinity and interest in the task. What we didn't know until we were almost 10 years old is we tracked all the occupational data and of our workers. And in 2019, we looked and we found that that our average absenteeism rate was less than 1%. Our average annual turnover was less than 10%. We had 3 years with no lost time accidents, but we'd averaged less than 1 per year. And the average Blue Star employee now has been with us a little over 6.5 years. And then in 2016, a third-party researcher came and sat with our team and recorded the minutes of the hour that they were engaged in their task. And they were 98.43% task engaged. Now, obviously, that sounds pretty good. What makes that even more important is the average American employee doing that work is exactly half that productive at 49%. That's from that researcher. So all of a sudden, we realized that we weren't just looking at employees who were as good as traditional labor. We were looking at employees who, in many cases, were superior to traditional labor because their assets were so lined up and so beneficial to the tasks that they were able to excel. And again, without turnover, without absenteeism, without lost time accidents, they are tremendously beneficial to the bottom line. So the conclusions are easy to make. One is that this is a workforce that is as good as or better than what most recyclers employ, the workforce they employ. And then more importantly, the unemployment rate, which has hovered between 80 and 90% for most of the last 50 years, is not a result of a lack of ability. It's a lack of opportunity. Once given the opportunity, these workers thrive. Next slide. So the end of 2018, early 2019, I was sharing that slide that I just shared with Jim Puckett and his team at e-Stewards. And the question was, how do we get this information out to employers so they take a shot at this workforce and begin to understand the benefits? And it just so happened there was a convening, an e-Stewards convening coming up, and we were able to get it scheduled in Colorado. And I think around a dozen or so recyclers came over to Blue Star's facility in Denver, and we're able to watch our team and meet our team. And really in person, I can talk about this all day, but until you see them at work, it's probably not as impactful. Needless to say that at the end of visit to our place, I think it was Jim that asked the question, how many of you here would like to have the kind of employees that Blue Star has? And every one of them raised their hands. We were lucky to have James Emmett there that day. James Emmett, of course, is the provider of the training for this program, but James had been instrumental in getting the Walgreens inclusion program up and running and getting them trained, and along with a lot of other larger employers. When we kind of got together after that convening and said, what do we do now? James had the idea to get employers trained so they could take advantage of and leverage this workforce potential. So we created Advanced Plus. Next slide, Prima. We created Advanced Plus to kick off in 2020. Of course, with anything that started in 2020, we were competing with an international pandemic, and it was kind of hard to get rolling. Thankfully, one of the panelists here, Bob Adams and Sipi Asset Recovery, they happened to get in right before the pandemic kind of slowed everything down, so they were able to get trained and get rolling. But the goal of the program is very simple. It's just to match employers with a labor solution that exists in their community, and to provide meaningful employment to people with disabilities who are very, very good at this work. We were really fortunate to be able to bring this to the industry through a collaboration that really, in my experience, has been unequaled. We needed e-Stewards to really have the platform to work with the recyclers in the industry, the best actors. On the EH&S side, we were able to partner with James Emmett and Company, who's a leading disability inclusion trainer in the US. And then Mitsubishi Electric America Foundation, you'll hear from Kevin after me, became interested in our mission, and by association became interested in helping us get this off the ground so recyclers could begin to receive the training. So we have 4 partners in this, and each of us have a purpose, but we're able to put forth, I think, really one of the very best industry cohort trainings there are. Next slide. I threw this in because one of the things that I'd like the recyclers on this call to consider is that almost all of us now are beginning to talk about, if we haven't already done it, we've talked about corporate social responsibility goals, ESG goals, triple bottom line goals, you name it. And along with our environmental impact that all certified recyclers produce, we want to, when possible, produce social impact. Well, in 2018, the National Institute for Social Impact, that happens to be located in Colorado, approached Blue Star. They had heard about us, and they said, we have a new set of formulas that monetize the impact when a person with a disability goes to work. We have the ability now to know what that's worth in terms of cost savings to the taxpayer and positive economic impact. So on the surface, we employ people with disabilities, but here's what's going on under the surface. Every day a person with a disability comes to work, their earned income displaces benefit income. Every day when they get a paycheck, that is taxable income that they weren't producing before. Honestly, one of the very biggest cost savings to taxpayers is when a person with a disability is employed. Their medical and physical picture looks entirely different. It's black and white. I don't think this is restricted to people with disabilities. When you're sitting home and you have no purpose and you're not contributing to your team or to your community, you get depressed, your health gets worse, and they track the Institute tracked the healthcare usage of unemployed workers with Blue Star. They sat down with the families and looked at what did that person use for healthcare before they went to work and after, and the differences were striking. And then lastly, the economic impact, a person with a disability or a husband and wife with a disability, or have a son or daughter with a disability, most likely one of the two parents is staying home with that young person. When that young person goes to work, it frees up both adults to go to work, and now we go from a one income family to 2 or 2.5 incomes. So the family average income goes up. So here's what all that means in dollars and cents, and this was the result of their study. The average employee with a disability at Blue Star Recyclers produces $49,000 of taxpayer savings and positive impact every year, positive economic impact. And quite often that's more than they earn, especially with our part-time employees. So if you think about it, when you employ a person with a disability, you trigger an economic benefit that most of us think about social impact by employing people with disabilities, but there's a significant economic impact. And when we took that 49,000 times our workforce times the amount of years we've been open, we just crossed the $20 million line. And here's another way of looking at this that I think recyclers can benefit from is that from the amount of material we brought in since our founding, we divided that by that 20.2 million. And that means for every pound of material of electronic waste that comes into Blue Star, we've saved taxpayers 64 cents per pound. So if you're ever going to have an argument that says that recycling doesn't cost, it pays, it's this argument. So this is the kind of data that if you employ this workforce, you can put on your websites, you can use when you go after accounts. I can tell you that we won our biggest accounts, Blue Star, City, County, Denver, and other accounts through this data. It takes the conversation away from a price per pound or price per piece. And now the municipality is looking at, we're going to use our retired electronics and our retired assets to create social and economic impact. So this is really the game changer on the impact side. And this is something that once you employ this workforce, you can capture. Next slide. So I'm going to finish my part of this by sharing a personal story, because while those numbers in the previous slide are impressive, I think you always have to go back to the human part of this. What's the impact on a human being? And Tom's story, Tom Maloney, who works for us, his story honestly isn't any different than any other employee that's come to Blue Star. There's a predictable pattern. When they reach us and interview, they rarely know what their own assets are and what their strengths are. Most of them have not had an opportunity to be employed, so they're not going to come in with a long resume. They're rarely going to be able to socially communicate with you what they are able to do. So they're going to, there we go. They're going to need an opportunity to just get started. And Tom was no different. At the age of 31, he was diagnosed with autism. Now you notice there that he didn't know that he had a disability. He was one of those guys with his age. He got through the school system, and he got a high school diploma, got a 2-year college degree, but could not find employment that paid a living wage. And he got some part-time work and some volunteer work. Got extremely depressed. Was home living in his mother's basement for a while, and basically came into, at that point, received his diagnosis of autism at the age of 31. The woman that was working with him was a board member of ours, and she said, "Tom, let's get you to work." She called us and asked if we had any openings, and the only opening I had was a position working with the public in the front counter. Now, why is that important? Because Tom had extreme difficulty with communicating, his speech impediment, and as with most people on the autism spectrum, some difficulty socializing. But this is the kind of bravery that you'll see. He took that job, because he wanted to go to work. And I'm not sure I would have taken that job if I had had his challenges. But he took it, he did great. He memorized the lines. When people walked in, he would just sort of say this, you know, hi, my name is Tom, and how can I help you? And then one day we saw him dinking around with a computer, and we said, you know anything about computers? He goes, oh yeah, I know how to fix and build them, you name it. He says, I'm just a nerd. And I said, that would have been nice to have on your resume, because he didn't put it on there. Again, that's very typical. The strengths are there, but they're not bragging about them. So he started a little program we wanted to run to refurbish computers for low-income school kids. And then the next year, we gave him a project. And again, we didn't know what was going to happen. This is the first individual at Blue Star we've promoted into senior management. We gave him a project for testing and resale of components, where he runs the RFPs and runs a team. He started out with a team of 3. You'll see on that bottom picture. That team now is 5 people, and his team brought in $500,000 in the last 2 years that new net revenue that we did not have before. He just took that thing and ran with it. And again, he's now on the senior leadership team. So this is a guy that went from his mother's basement to being a leader at Blue Star Recyclers. And that's the kind of talent that is sitting home that simply needs an opportunity to get started. So our story is Tom's story, really. And I wanted to give this history just so you kind of knew why we're bringing this out. So I'm going to introduce the next panelist, Kevin Webb, the Senior Director for Mitsubishi Electric America Foundation. They've been a tremendous friend of Blue Star and this movement. Kevin, take it away.
Great, thanks, Bill. So I am Kevin Webb, the Senior Director of Mitsubishi Electric America Foundation, or as we're commonly known, MEEF. And we're the corporate grant-making foundation for the Mitsubishi Electric group companies here in the United States. And I was asked to talk about how we define success as a funder. And this is how we define success: collaboration. Mitsubishi Electric employees working together with our grantees, in this case, Blue Star Recyclers and Spirit Tech, which trains people with autism in quality assurance and IT testing, working together on an event, collecting electronics, and providing some tech support to passersby, but also demonstrating that young people with disabilities can be employed and helping to realize a vibrant and sustainable society. Next slide. And that's what our purpose at Mitsubishi Electric is: realizing a vibrant, sustainable society. As a global electronics manufacturing company, we of course create technological solutions for challenges in society, and we reflect that as a foundation. So here in the US, our foundation has been working for over 30 years to empower young people with disabilities, promote social inclusion in society, and really focused on that idea of building a pipeline of capable talent. Just like Bill talked about, how can we help young people get prepared for employment, place them in jobs to help them personally, and of course that economic benefit that Bill talked about. So when Bill approached us, what's been now 3 years ago now, Bill, about this wonderful model they have to employ people with disabilities, it was a natural fit for the foundation, focused on social inclusion and environmental conservation, with our mission as a foundation focused on empowering youth, and of course the company as an electronics manufacturer wanting to see electronics ethically recycled. Next slide. So our desired outcomes as a foundation, it's very simple: jobs. But it's not just any jobs, competitive jobs, fulfilling jobs, jobs that take advantage of people's strengths and assets and help them be, again, productive members of society. And as a funder, we like to invest in programs just like this e-Stewards Advanced Plus program to share effective models so that others can help more people get jobs. And in doing that, we hope to instill a culture of inclusion. The idea that everybody brings assets to the table, can get involved, and again, help realize that vibrant and sustainable society. So we're proud to support Blue Star Recyclers and the e-Stewards Advanced Plus program. We're excited to share that we're continuing funding Advanced Plus 2.0, so continuing to support the model. You can learn more about us at meaf.org or follow us on social media at #EmpowerPossible. And I believe e-Stewards will be sharing out contact information later, but you can feel free to reach out to me through Bill or e-Stewards, and happy to hear about any other employment ideas or models you have to create a more vibrant, sustainable society. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Greg Cox from James Emmett and Company, who will share about the first couple years of the Advanced Plus program, and that we as a funder are proud to fund and see the results of. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you. Good morning. I am Greg Cox, a corporate disability consultant with James Emmett and Company. We do provide the training and oversight for the e-Stewards Advanced Plus initiative. And as Kevin said, we want this to be a culture. And this is not just a program that you have a little checklist to go through. We want to embed a culture within these companies. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of our 1.0 results and then what we're looking for our 2.0 overview. Next slide, please. All right, we've had 8 graduates so far in the 2020-21 program, as you can see there. And next slide, please. 8 recyclers have graduated, as we say, through the Advanced Plus initiative. Sipi being the first of those. Sipi AR. I've worked a lot with Bob and his team. They're fantastic. And so far, since the beginning of this program, of course, we had the struggles, as Bill mentioned, with COVID. As everyone has had, but we've had a total of 36 hires since the beginning, a retention rate of 75%, which is well above the average nowadays, as you all know. And we've also had 0 lost time accidents during that period. So all, once again, good, business reasons for business decisions to hire people with disabilities and start this kind of an initiative within your organization. Very successful. So next slide, please. So the 2022 program investment and return on investment. Right now, we're going to have an opportunity of this is lower than our normal cost, if you will, for James Emmett to come in and build an initiative such as this. It's $18,000 for all certified recyclers. If you are an e-Stewards recycler, you're eligible for a $3,000 discount as well. And your average standard ROI for recyclers is $29,600 in 1 year. That's going to more than cover the cost of your investment. Of course, that's going to keep coming year after year as well. So very good return on investment, considering the amount of money that you put into the program. Next slide. All right, so the initiative, program benefits. All right. I'm the main contact with James Emmett and Company. I've been working with all the recyclers that have been a part of this. I came on board last year in February, so I've been here a little over a year. What we do, as we've done with some of the other recyclers, we have an initial assessment, which could be either in person or virtually. We've done that both ways due to COVID and safety protocols and that sort of thing. But we want to get a bird's eye view of your facility. We want to know how it runs, what your departments are all your positions. We want to meet your team. We want to identify people within your team that I call champions, people that understand what we're doing, what this is about, and will help us to ensure that this will be successful. And as part of that assessment, then we're also going to look at your pay scale, where you are, how accessible is your building, what positions are open, what training is required, what kind of assets can people bring to your different levels of openings that you may have. As a part of that, we do a disability awareness training program for everybody from upper level management all the way down to the leads and supervisors on the facility floor. We want people to have a good understanding of what it's like to work with someone with disability, maybe someone next to you, maybe you're going to supervise someone. We want to give you all the benefits of training for people. Many times it's going to be people on the autism spectrum, as Bill has mentioned, but people with all disabilities. We've had great success in placing people from the deaf and hard of hearing community, sometimes from the community where people are blind or have limited vision, just a variety of different disabilities. So as a part of that, we do the disability training. We're also developing partners within your local area that provide employment opportunities for people with disabilities. We're reaching out to those partner agencies, letting them know what's going on. As a part of that, I have the initial launch of a company. I create a partner package with all the information, the name of the company, how you apply for the jobs, what the jobs are, what kind of people we're looking for, all the benefits, any safety protocols, do you have COVID precautions you go through, any and everything about your company and what's available for someone. And then we do a virtual tour at that point with all of the partners coming into that. I give them the partner packet before we begin that tour, and they're able to go through all of that. If this has worked extremely well, as many more agencies can attend something virtual versus something in person. So that's been very successful for us. Next slide, please. All right, messaging. We can also help you if you would like messaging both internally for your workforce so they understand why this is a business decision. This is not pity. This is not charity. You're doing this for a good return on your investment. We can also help you with messaging out in the public. That's always goes well. Any kind of positive message you could extend to your community to let them know that you are striving to be a employer of choice for people with disability. That goes a long way with goodwill within the community. So that's always a good side benefit, if you will. And then the ongoing recruitment, ongoing sourcing of qualified candidates, continuing to reach out and build that partner list of local community partners, and getting that word out as things change. Maybe you have different openings come up. Many times we'll have monthly meetings of the partners to get the information in front of them as well. So it is always an ongoing type of event. So next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to now introduce Bob Adams, Vice President of Finance and Operations at Sipi. Like I said, I've been working with them now for quite some time. They're a wonderful organization, so I'm happy to introduce Bob.
Thanks a lot, Greg. Really pleased to be part of this panel. Appreciate all the support we've gotten. If we can go to the next slide, please. So when we originally started our internal program, one of the cornerstones of our mission statement is to do the right thing. So very early in 2019, we implemented our own initiative called RISE, which stood for Responsibility, Independence, and Self-Empowerment. And we were looking at opportunities to allow and generate employment for folks with disabilities. Personally, as a personal side, I have a granddaughter with Down, so this is a mission that I take to heart quite a bit, and our organization has really embraced it. In early 2020, Eric Doran, our general manager, was actually part of that contingency that went to Blue Star, and he's in a couple of those pictures early on in Bill's slides. He came back, informed me about this program. We jumped on it, and 2 years ago this week, I was out in Denver with Bill and Sam and going through the training at Blue Star. Definitely is something you need to see for yourself, and really gave me a lot of confidence that we could grow our RISE program. We completed training through a variety of fashions in those difficult times with COVID, both on site and virtually, and our entire supervisory staff was trained actually several times, so with the help of James Emmett Company. In 2021, we really took it to the next level with the help of Greg and his team, and with Bill, we recruited almost 60 folks. Almost 20% of our workforce is in the disability arena. We also worked with Bill and Blue Star to expand into a subcontract arrangement with his facility in Illinois, and that has been doing a great job for us. So we've expanded both internally and externally. Our plans for 2022 and beyond is to, as we move into a growth phase, we consider those areas that have the ability to support our program. And we will continue to work with e-Stewards and James, Emmett, and Bill to drive that initiative. Next slide, please. This is a few of our partners. Definitely the being part of this program expanded our reach and exposure. And when we were doing it internally, definitely we were having some issues trying to locate and create those relationships. So Greg and his team have really been a big help to us to generate more candidates. We've facilitated that connection with these partners by hosting, when we could, on-site open houses. And we've also were very successful with virtual open houses. We've now moved into recruiting out of school districts. The Township High School District 211 is a remarkable source of candidates, both on an intern level and also on a permanent placement level. This is one of those things that is a true win-win. We are all struggling with hiring and retaining workers, and this is a great strategy to generate, fill jobs that you have and to help the community. You can go to the next slide. So results, I'm going to echo Bill and Greg's slides. Great attendance, very low turnover. The workforce is engaged, they're devoted. I mentioned that we're over 20% of our workforce. Our goal by 2023, and we're working through this year to get there, is to get to 50% of our workforce. I'll share a couple of stories. That picture in the corner is some of our original folks. The chap in the center, Edgar, has been with us well over 2 years. He's our head janitor. A nice story about him is a coach that we were taking through a tour had worked with him the year before. And I was walking and I introduced her back to Edgar, and she was amazed at his development. When he was with her, he was not very verbal and not very engaged. He is one of our most boisterous and engaging people we have working for us. On the far right is Kim, who has worked for us and is now working on our behalf at Blue Star in Illinois. She is the queen of adapter sorting, and I think she set a single day record for laptop teardown. So there's some, these are great people. They do a great job, and we couldn't be more pleased to be part of this program. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Bill.
Hey, Bill, can you unmute yourself?
I'm muted. So first of all, thank you to the other panelists and Prima. I really appreciate you guys sharing the work you've done and to make this thing work. All we had was, again, an accidental idea that just sort of developed into something. So the reason that we wanted to do this webinar mainly was to let you know the results from the program. Secondly, that it is open to any recycler that's certified this year. It's not just for e-Stewards. And finally, that Mitsubishi Electric America Foundation is supporting the program again. And the first 5 employers that sign up and complete this program will receive a $5,000 rebate off that $18,000 or $15,000 training fee, depending if you're an e-Steward or not. So, so if you're interested and you have a need to get started, this is really good time. We're hopeful that we can find additional funders to be able to have more than 5 slots funded. But again, if you're interested, jump into this thing quickly, and all you have to do is just email Prima and her email address is on there, and we'll get things rolling. You'll hear from myself and from Greg, and we'll get you scheduled and get started. One thing I wanted to mention, and it really is important. I found that most recyclers have tried to employ this workforce. So we're not bringing anything that's particularly new in terms of the idea. What I have found is most recyclers that have tried it have not had success with it, or the kind of success they had hoped to have. And the reasons are very, very predictable and very common. Typically, it's we set our expectations too low, our motivations are too philanthropic, and we don't really get buy-in at the entire company level. And honestly, I think the most impactful thing that happens is sourcing. We don't have a good sourcing partner. Bob mentioned that they've been able to find several sourcing partners now. If that isn't working properly, the whole thing kind of falls apart. This is the reason why what James Emmett will do for you is so important, is to give you the best chance of success to make this work, because it isn't rocket science, but you really have to understand the best practices for hiring and developing this workforce. So if you've tried it and you'd like to get the help to do it right, we'd love to work with you. So I think that, Prima, is that it? So now we're going to open it to question and answers, and you can write your questions in the chat box, or I guess, David, can they just ask live then too?
David, do we have anyone raising their hands for questions?
Yeah, we have one question from Dawn.
Okay.
So let me unmute Dawn if you'd like to ask your question.
And panelists, if you could engage your camera, that'd be great.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Dawn.
I have two questions. Sorry about that.
Like the Twilight Zone.
Don, I see you've asked one question in the chat. Do you want to just type out your question? Unless it's very complicated. That's okay. I see that she's asked one question. Can the sourcing of candidates work for multi-state employers?
Greg, do you want to answer that?
Ask the question again. I didn't quite hear what you said.
Can the sourcing of candidates work for multi-state employers?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're driving at. I personally work with contracts all over the U.S. I've got partners in numerous states. I'm actually going to start working with a company in England in the very near future as well. So this is very broad based. We do want to get the providers in the local area to that facility. But yes, so like with Sipi, I work with both, their Elk Grove Village as well as Hayward, California. Completely different partner base, but yet it's the same concept. So.
Great. And her second question is, how long is the actual training program?
The initial training that I do with leadership is about an hour. We have additional trainees that we can also bring in if you want to get, autism specific or something with the blind and limited sight community or deaf community, things like that. Fear and stigma training, we discussed that as well. So there are other training available beyond your general disability training, but it's going to be an ongoing thing also as we're communicating back and forth. We're always here as a resource. So as questions come up, we help to address that. Maybe get the provider agency to step in if we need to with a job coach or anything like that. But the initial training itself is a 1-hour course that can be broken up. I've had, different companies that operate, whether it's just 8 to 5 or whatever during the day, or maybe they have 3 shifts. I've actually held, trainings for each of the shifts separately like that. So that's very workable within the framework of how your company operates.
Greg, just real quick, I think her question also was how long, I mean, if from start to finish, is it, you know, what's the average recycler taken to complete everything? Is it 2, 3, 4, 5 months? If they do everything right on schedule?
If everything's on schedule, we get the assessment done, quickly work on the partner packet. Generally, I can have that sort of thing completed within a week or two. At that point, it kind of falls on me if there's no partners in that area. If we've not been in a certain city or whatever before, I'm going to need a week or so to start generating partners, literally getting on the phone, shooting out emails, just getting partners interested in this. Did that in Nevada. It was huge. Went from contacting 20 people in 3 days to when we did the launch, they in turn invited others in their network. We had almost 60 organizations represented when we did that launch. So that could snowball, but say take a month. I would say tops from the beginning when you do the assessment, doing the partner package, doing the leadership training, depending on, you know, we're able to schedule that. And then you do the launch. And then usually within 2 to 3 weeks after that, we start seeing candidate flow.
Awesome. If anyone else has any questions and they'd like to ask them out loud, please use the raise hand button. Not seeing any other questions.
Let us off easy.
Any comments are welcome too.
Of course. Or you can, of course, type them in the chat if you don't want to use your microphone.
All right. So those of you who want to kind of revisit this webinar, just know that we will be uploading it to the e-Stewards website. So it will be available for you to see it later. And if you have questions then, you can still reach out to us. Like Bill said, you can write to me. My email ID is prema@e-stewards.org, or you can write at info@e-stewards.org. All of us are here to answer your questions, and thank you for making time, and thank you for attending and your participation, and thank you for all the panelists for making time and making this morning very resourceful. David, thank you for your assistance as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Have a good day, everybody.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.